To a Roman, military art was the highest of all. It was constantly being improved until it reached absolute perfection. With the old weapons and implements of war, to its perfection the whole genius of the people was consecrated. It was to them what the fine arts were to the Greeks, what priestly domination was to the Middle Ages, and what material inventions to abridge human labor are to us. The Romans despised literature, art, philosophy, commerce, agriculture, and even luxury. When they were making their grand conquests, they only respected their fortunate generals. Hence, there was no great encouragement to genius or ambition in any other field, but in this field the horizon perpetually expanded. Every new conquest prepared the way for successive conquests. Ambition here was untrammeled, energy was unbounded, visions of glory were most dazzling, warlike schemes were most fertile, until the whole world lay bleeding and prostrate. Military genius, however, does not present man in the highest state of wisdom or beauty. It is very attractive, but there is a greater than the warrior's excellence, at least to a contemplative or religious eye. When men save nations in fearful crises by their military genius, as Napoleon did, France, when surrounded with hostile armies, or Gustavus Adolphus did Germany when it was struggling for religious rights, then they render the greatest possible services and receive no unmerited honors. The heart of the world cherishes the fame of Miltiades of Charlemagne, of Henry IV, of Washington, for they were identified with great causes. War is one of the occasional necessities of our world. No nation can live, or is worthy to live, without military virtues. They rescue nations on the verge of ruin and establish great rights, without which life is nothing. War, however much to be lamented as an evil, is the last appeal and resource of nations, and settles what cannot be settled without it. And it will probably continue so long as there are blindness, ambition, and avarice among men. Nor, under certain circumstances of which nations can only be the proper judges, is it inconsistent with the law of love. Hence, as it is a great necessity, it will ever be valued as a great science. Civilization accepts it and claims it. It calls into exercise great qualities, and these intoxicate the people, who bow down to them as godlike. Still, military genius, however lauded and honored, is too often allied with ambition and selfishness to secure the highest favor of philosophers or Christians. It does not reveal the soul in its loftiest aspirations. Men of a coarser type are often most successful, men insensible to pity and to reproach, whose greatest merit is in will, nerve, energy, and power of making rapid combinations. We revere the intellect of the Greeks more than that of the Romans, though they were inferior to the latter in military success. We have more respect for those qualities which add to the domain of truth than those which secure power. A wise man elevates the Bacons, the Newtons, and the Shakespeares above all the Marlboroughs and Wellingtons. Plato is surrounded with a brighter halo than Themistocles, and Cicero than Marius. War as a trade is unscrupulous, hard, rapacious, destructive. It foments all evil passions. It is allied with all the vices. It is antagonistic to human welfare. It worships only success. It raises wicked men to power. It prostrates and hides the good. It extinguishes what is most lovely and spurns what is most exalted. It makes a pandemonium of earth and drags to its triumphant car the venerated relics of ages. It is an awful crime, making slaves of the helpless and spreading consternation, misery, and death wherever it goes, marking its progress with a trail of blood, and filling the earth with imprecations and curses. It is the greatest scourge which God uses to chastise enervated nations, and cannot be contemplated with any satisfaction except as the wrath which is made to praise the sovereign ruler who employs what means he chooses to punish or exalt. Now the Romans, in a general sense, pursued war as a trade, to gratify a thirst for power, to raise themselves on the ruins of ancient monarchies, to enrich themselves with the spoils of the world, and to govern it for selfish purposes. There were many Roman wars which were exceptions, when an exalted patriotism was the animating principle. But aggressive war was the policy and shame of Rome. Her citizens did not generally fight to preserve liberties or rights or national existence, but for self-aggrandizement. Incessant campaigns for 1,000 years brought out military science, courage, energy, and a grasping and selfish patriotism. They gave power, skill to rule, executive talents, and these qualities, eminently adapted to worldly greatness, made the Romans universal masters, even if they do not make them interesting. They developed great strength, resource, will, and even made them wise in administration, possibly great civilizers, since centralized power is better than anarchies. Yet these traits do not make us love them or revere them. Providence doubtless ordered the universal monarchy, which only universal war could establish, for the good of the world at that time, for the advancement of civilization itself. Universal dominion must be succeeded by universal peace, and in such a peace the higher qualities and virtues and talents can only be manifested, so that the Roman rule was not a calamity, but a very desirable despotism. Yet despotism it was, cold, remorseless, self-seeking. War made the Romans practical, calculating, overbearing, proud, scornful, imperious. But war made them a great people, and made them eminent in certain great qualities. Their success in war is tantamount to saying that in one great field of genius which civilization honors, they not merely distinguished themselves and gained a proud fame, which will never die out of the memory of man, but that they have had no equals in any age. War enabled them to build up a vast empire, which empire gave a great impulse to ancient civilization. There is something very singular and mysterious in the results of wars which are caused and carried on by unprincipled and unscrupulous men. They are made to end in substantial benefits to the human race. The wrath of man, in other words, is made to praise God, showing that He is the sovereign ruler on this earth, and uses what instruments He pleases to carry out His great and benevolent designs. However atrocious the causes of wars and execrable, the spirit in which they are carried out, they are ever made to subserve the benefit of future ages, and the great cause of civilization in its vast connections. Men may be guilty, and may be punished for their wickedness, and execrated through all time by enlightened nations. Still they are but tools of the higher power. I do not say that God is the author of wars any more than He is of sin, but wars are yet sent as a punishment to those whom they directly and immediately affect, while they unbind the cords of slavery and relax the hold of tyrants. They are like storms in the natural world. They create a healthier moral life after the disasters are past. Those ambitious men who seek to add province to province and kingdom to kingdom, and for whom no maledictions are too severe, since they shed innocent blood, rarely succeed unless they quarrel with doomed nations incapable of renovation. Thus, Babylon fell before Cyrus when her day had come, and she could do no more for civilization. Thus, Persia, in her turn, yielded to the Grecian heroes, when she became enervated with the luxuries of the conquered kingdoms. Thus Greece again succumbed to Rome, when she had degenerated into a land where every vice was rampant. The passions which inflamed Cyrus and Alexander and Pompey were alike imperious, and their policy was alike unscrupulous. They simply were bent on conquest and on establishing powerful empires, which conquest doubtless resulted in the improvement of the condition of mankind. There is also something hard and forbidding in the policy of successful statesmen. We are shocked at their injustice, cruelty, and rapaciousness, but they are often used by Providence to raise nations to preeminence, when their ascendancy is, on the whole, a benefit to the world. There is nothing amiable or benign in the characters of such men as Oxenstiern, Richelieu, or Bismarck. But who can doubt the wisdom of their administration? It is seldom that any nation is allowed to have a great ascendancy over other nations unless the general influence of the dominant state is favorable to civilization. And when this influence is perverted, the ascendancy passes away. This is remarkably seen in the history of the Persian, the Greek, and the Roman empires, and still more forcibly in the empire of the popes in the Middle Ages, and of the vast influence of France and England during the last 100 years. This is both a mystery and a fact. It is mysterious that bad men should be allowed to succeed so often, but it is one of the sternest facts of life, only to be explained on the principle that they are instruments in the hands of the great moral governor, whose designs we are not able to fathom, yet the wisdom of which is subsequently, though imperfectly, made known. It was wicked in the sons of Jacob to sell Joseph to the Ishmaelites. Their craft and lies were successful. They deceived their father and accomplished their purposes. Yet his bondage was the means of their preservation from the evils of famine. The rise and fall of empires are to be explained on the same principles as the rise and fall of families. A coarse, unscrupulous, but enterprising man gets rich, but his wealth is made to subserve interests far greater than that of his children. Hospitals, colleges, and libraries are endowed as monasteries were in the Middle Ages. If vice, selfishness, and pride were not overruled, what would become of our world? The whole history of civilization is the good which is made to spring out of evil. Men are nothing in comparison with omnipotence. What are human plans? Yet enterprise and virtue and talent are rewarded. In the affairs of life we see that goodness does not lose its recompense and that vice is punished. But beyond, what more impressively do we behold than this, that the instruments of punishment are often the wicked themselves?